Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Schwartz, and this is Gain, the Generative AI News Rundown, where every week we talk about the top news in generative AI. This week, we're looking at the way deepfakes are already at the center of multiple scandals, while Microsoft's bet on OpenAI is paying enormous literal dividends. Plus, a recent flurry of generative AI features might change how we shop online. India has its first generative AI unicorn, and a pro soccer team is using AI as a scout for their next team. My usual co-host Brett Kinsell is away, but luckily I have my colleague Andrew Herndon joining me. How are you, Andrew?
Hey, Eric. Great to be here. So we
Awesome.
hope Brett is doing well where
Yes.
he is, and he'll probably be joining us on the comments. So
Yes, I'm
keep
sure
your
we'll see
eyes
him
peeled
pop
for
up.
that. I guess we're trading places.
Yeah,
So
but we decided not to deep fake him, but that apparently is not the choice being made by quite a few other people out there, as we've seen in some recent news. Both Joe Biden and Taylor Swift deepfakes have rocked parts of the political and entertainment world. As you may have seen, there's been a lot of deepfake images of Taylor Swift that were popping up to such an extent that X, formerly Twitter, actually blocked searches for Taylor Swift because of all the explicit images being deepfaked of her. And meanwhile, a deepfake version of Joe Biden has been was calling people in New Hampshire and trying to tell them not to vote during their primary recently. So two very different kinds of stories in some ways, but definitely linked by the, uh, I guess, the power of large language models and synthetic media to mimic real people in ways that they don't necessarily want to have out there. So it's a real rapid fire couple of stories to happen in just the first month of this year, and I suspect presages quite a lot of similar issues going forward. What do you think, Andrew? Is this the new normal now? Everything that happens with a celebrity has to be checked to make sure it's not fake.
I don't think we're even close to the new normal yet. I think that um, as these technologies are starting to be used by more people, we're going to have more of this. I think that even now, like we're in the early adopter phase, and the Taylor Swift thing, I think, was determined it came from a 4chan, and I mean, there's going to be people trading things like this amongst themselves frequently, probably forever,
Hmm.
and then I think that we'll see things evolve virally as the technology evolves. We'll get more and more viral things of like, oh, did you see this latest deep fake of whatever doing whatever in whatever? And of course, it's going to be a big mess because I think that the world of celebrities and publicists and all these people are going to have a hard time figuring out how to control it, which is why they've had all these Senate hearings. But we'll see, you know,
Yeah,
where that
it's
goes.
well, it's interesting because the sort of flip side of it is that the ability to detect deepfakes. I mean, sometimes it's very obvious, but in other cases, it's not so much. And it was impressive how, for instance, with the Joe Biden robocaller, Pindrop, a company that's been working on um, verification of real versus fake audio, they were able to work out, to prove essentially that it is a deep fake, and actually show that it most likely came out of 11 Labs, a synthetic media startup that later actually confirmed that it was their technology being misused, and they of course banned the person who created the fake Joe Biden audio. But I think we're going to see a lot of back and forth in terms of how the technology can be misused, and how other uh, technology developers try to either spot or prevent this kind of thing. But I don't think I think you're right that it's far from reaching equilibrium in that regard.
Yeah, and we did this report with Pindrop a while ago. Not a while, it's actually pretty recent. Last
Yeah.
fall was we were compiling it, and it's available. You can go to the voicebot.ai, and I think it's our banner ad right now, and you can get it from Pindrop as well. But this is still at even months ago. The numbers for the awareness. I think that what we're going to see is now this awareness is going to really skyrocket, and it'll be
Yep.
really interesting. You see here, At the time, banking was top of mind and concerns for like what voice clones were going to do, people, impersonating you and getting to your account, which is probably what I think now we will probably see a big shift in this now that I guess the general population is starting to have a real understanding of what's going on now that it's eked into the mega celebrity
Yeah.
start realm.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of places where a lot of money is spent or a lot of money is sloshing around, I mean, entertainment and politics offer a lot of tempting opportunities for scammers, as we've seen before with deepfake celebrity pitches. But I think now it's really going to be the question will always be, is this deepfake, rather than being surprised, later on, or rather than
Right.
questioning whether there's a possibility it's a deepfake. It's just going to be, well, is this a deepfake or not? Because we know that it could be. So yeah, it's a sea change for sure. But of course, that doesn't mean that generative AI has not had its more legitimate triumphs, especially for the companies that were smart enough, or at least forward thinking enough, to really go all in on its potential. And of course, Microsoft is the poster child for that. And there's a lot of new numbers, a lot of new evidence that Microsoft was smart to go all in with OpenAI and really make Azure the conduit for OpenAI's services. And there's the most recent earnings call. Satya Nadella said that over half of the Fortune 500 are using Azure OpenAI. He said that they have 53,000 Azure AI customers, with a third in just the last year. 50% growth, just huge numbers that, of course, then translate into more revenue and higher stock prices, and just a real shift in how I think how people consider Microsoft. I mean, it's been a giant of the industry for decades now, but this is sort of a real renaissance, I think, for how people view it as a competitor with the others in its space, Apple and Amazon, Google, and so on. It's strange to say, but Microsoft has been really the most agile and innovative in that regard, at least up to this point, though it probably won't quite have as much of an open lane in the next couple of years.
I know. I
Uh,
think we'll see. I think clearly the market is rewarding Microsoft for their ability to, or I guess the leadership that Satya Nadella has put forward, and really, I mean, obviously with the OpenAI debacle that was happening months ago, it's just clear that Microsoft is in the leadership position here, and I think that this Azure news also shows us that.
yeah, um, yeah, it's a sign of how the conversation has changed. I mean, we talked, of course, about during the pandemic and after, how there was a real shift in the ways that certain technologies were being addressed or discussed, and both for startups and the larger companies. And I think Microsoft is for now going to be considered the top winner, although of course hardly alone in making plenty of money from this technology. But yeah, as we see the earnings coming out this week, I mean, generative AI is a watchword for higher stock price is not a crazy correlation to make. And of course, Microsoft owes a lot of that success to committing to OpenAI, putting billions into what they're doing, especially with ChatGPT. And OpenAI has not been shy about putting that money into new projects, new features for ChatGPT. And I think their most recent one sort of rolled out a little quietly at first, but now is official, where the custom GPTs, that is the chatbots that are built on ChatGPT that can be designed for basically anything. Brett made one for creating superheroes. I played around with one for designing greeting cards, but there's a lot more powerful and complex versions of these things. And now, when you're talking to ChatGPT, you can actually invoke those custom GPTs within your conversation, sort of rather than having to open it separately. You can just talk to it within your larger conversation with a chatbot. And It points to, as OpenAI said, they really want to make the GPT store and these custom GPTs part of what makes people want to use ChatGPT, and this definitely reduces the friction of accessing them. And I think ChatGPT definitely has a lot of the mind share when it comes to generative AI chatbots, but this will give OpenAI and ChatGPT an opportunity to extend that to the custom GPTs being built by OpenAI and by, of course, plenty of third parties.
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think, Andrew? Is this going to cement ChatGPT as the leader in this chatbot world?
Well, no, I don't think it's gonna cement them as anything. They're already the leader, and they're gonna continue to be the leader and innovate. But I think obviously other areas will follow suit. I think it is gonna be useful for the very slim amount of these custom GPTs people have made that are actually useful to them in some way. So, if I'm in my asking ChatGPT for something, and then I know that if there's a custom GPT that can do something better than the either version 3.5 or 4, whatever I'm using, then that'll be great to invoke that and just get that better thing. I think we talked a long time ago about they were trying to integrate like Wolfram and all these other things that would do like, the complex math bit
Yeah,
or whatever.
enterprise
So
work. Yeah,
if you have like some sort of custom coding thing that's really specific to something that you do or something, I think it could be very helpful. But I think otherwise right now it's just kind of like a novel thing that will evolve down the road and really show its benefit later on, I think, hopefully, or it'll just go away.
yeah. And as we said, Brett is here. Thanks for chiming in despite being stuck in a dentist chair. And yeah, as he says, Google had a similar idea with the Allo app, adding bots. Yeah, it's the question of it taking hold of GPTs is, I think, partly about which big brands certainly make these custom GPTs, but also about if there's any killer apps or any viral third party creations that really take off within the service. And yes, and hello to Alec. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to everyone who's here. Again, this is Gain, the generative AI news rundown, where each week we talk about all the top stories. And of course, that often involves Microsoft, but they're not the only big tech company with an LLM. And Meta has been putting out plenty of interesting work with their Llama and Llama 2 LLM. And the latest is a new version of the Code Llama, which is for helping. It's essentially a pair programmer helping coders write software, and they have a new version, the Code Llama 70B, which they've been claiming and showing some evidence that it could compete with GitHub Copilot, which is based on OpenAI's LLMs, but is sort of is again a leader in that space as well. And Meta, their approach has been if not open source, then at least a little more open access. And if they can say that they have a coding assistant that's equivalent to what GitHub is offering, then yeah, they could attract plenty of especially independent developers. And as you can see, a fantastic photo of a very muscular llama to show off how powerful it is. But I think what you'll find with this facet of the generative AI competition is that it's going to be the enterprise services like coding, or whether it's for independents or for businesses or for even large corporations. Anything that can cut down the time and resources needed to code is going to be a real winner. And so we've seen, Google has Cody, Amazon has Code Whisperer, Hugging Face has Star Coder, and there's more and more of these. But I think if Meta can get out ahead of GitHub, they're going to be possibly possibly going to take away some of that share that we were talking about with ChatGPT. What do you think,
Yeah,
Andrew?
I think that Meta will do a good job with this. They seem to have been doing like a great job of like staying right behind the cusp or right on the cusp and like floating like that fine line where they're never ahead and they're never behind. They're kind of always in the right spot. And I think that this will this will probably be used by quite a lot of people and be helpful to many of them. And I think at this point, in every podcast or like discussion area that I've been to, I think that generally speaking, people are pretty happy with the coding assistance so far that they've gotten from these things. Obviously, there are places to go and things to overcome, but I think that of the useful things in LLMs, these coding LLMs have been among the most useful in the immediate time for
Yeah,
engineers and
it's
developers.
but again, speaking of I guess enterprise use from at least from a more abstract point of view, there's the idea that it could help code a winning soccer team. In this case, IBM working with Sevilla FC, the Spanish soccer team. So IBM has WatsonX, which is their generative AI platform, and they're using it to analyze data about prospective players for the team, and looking to essentially perform the duties of a scout and help the Sevilla FC decide who should be on the team. And it's one of those, like, when you first hear about generative AI, you wouldn't necessarily think this is a potential outlet for the technology, but it makes sense. It's about analyzing a lot of quantitative and qualitative data and communicating it in a way that people who are not technically trained can understand. And so, who knows? Maybe there'll be a coding assistant and your scouting assistant for every professional sports team.
Yeah, I think that it's clearly a good use case, and we'll see how effective it is once it's really gone through. But obviously, sports, they love stats and they love to use the AI just for analysis. So anything that can do a better job than what they've already got they're going to use it and they're going to pay for it. And that's, of course, what companies want, is people that have the budget to pay for a lot of these higher end systems. And I think I'm going to make a prediction here. I believe we will see a commercial about this in the Super Bowl. I believe that the IBM has the budget, and they probably, just based on the amount of commercials that I've seen for Watson in the past month, I'm going to imagine that they're going to do a Super Bowl ad featuring this, or at least generative AI in some realm.
Yeah. Well, we won't be seeing any more cryptocurrency ads, so they'll have to come up with something else for their more tech focused advertising. But relatedly, though, when it comes to how these LLMs are integrated, we've discussed on the show several times about how web browsers are increasingly making generative AI features part of the browser, whether it's to help search or to um, uh, do research on websites, summarizing what they find, or Google making it part of their search engine for even creating images. But that includes some of uh, probably less widely used browsers, as well as less widely known LLMs. But Mistral, which is a French startup with some pretty impressive LLM data in terms of uh, relatively small but powerful LLMs. They're working with Brave, which is a browser built around uh, privacy mainly, and trying to not have your data taken by some of the bigger companies. And so Brave has been working on a generative AI system called Leo. They put it out actually last year, working with the Llama 2, but now they're expanding that to have multiple options. And as the default, they're going to Mistral with their Mixtral 8x7B LLM. And it's just sort of it's part of just the narrative of how it LLMs are becoming part of everything people are doing online, and whether or not it's from the bigger companies or the startups, in this case Mistral, it's just going to be embedded within your services, your software online. And I think the idea of having multiple options of LLMs but with a default choice, I think, is definitely the way to go for companies like Brave. And I'll be interested to see if this is the kind of thing that builds their audience, or whether or not it has really any impact on how many people use this browser over other options.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree. I think that it was a smart choice using the Mixtral, because it's obviously one of the most recent but well made models. And that whole team, I believe a large portion of them also worked on the original Llama. So I think that they're just going to have a good foundation there. And I think that some of these smaller players in the browsers and in different places aren't going to want to necessarily go with the big players, especially if it's like a browser like Brave or DuckDuckGo. Well, probably Brave more than DuckDuckGo, but Brave, where they want to have like a little bit more control and be able to, they're not going to be able to tell a larger organization what they want as well as they can somebody that actually is there. And I think we'll see that the mixed role model will be used in quite a lot of applications like this.
Yeah, and I think I think you're right. But speaking of when you're online, we have a bunch of stories about how generative AI and e-commerce are interacting. It's an ongoing story. We've written about assistance from Amazon and Google and Microsoft for shopping online, but some of the better known platforms are trying to make generative AI and synthetic media part of not only the shopping experience, but also the experience for those who sell things. So in this case, Shopify, which is quite popular, but they need to compete to get people to sell things on their platform, and so they have a new magic media editor tool that can create or design a background for products being sold there. The Magic brand has been part of their generative AI services for a few months now, but this sort of upscales what they're doing to really make the third-party users who are selling things have more access to these kinds of tools, and really make it sort of a streamlined system of you upload your picture of whatever you're selling, and then ask and describe what kind of background you want it to fit in. So obviously in this example, the shoes can be put into various settings for people to imagine that they're being used there. It's something similar to what Google's doing, what Amazon's doing, but it's the shift from sort of novelty feature to standard part of any e-commerce website. So I think that's that's very much how people are going to sell it.
I was going to say, I think we had announcements about the same idea from both Google and Amazon. And how does this compare to those? It's basically the same, right?
It takes the idea of Shopify, which is supposed to be a relatively easy, intuitive system for third-party sellers to be part of, and continues that by essentially saying, like, just type in something in a box, here's your image, you're done. Rather than a more complex system, which may have more features and more customization options, but takes more time and more effort. So I think Shopify knows who their sellers are, and they've been building on, as I said, the Magic brand for their generative AI features has been growing now. But I think once these kinds of tools expand from the biggest companies of all, like Amazon, down to Shopify, and then eventually any other online seller, you're going to see that it's just going to be a standard tool, like being able to upload images at all, which once upon a time was not. Once upon a time, Craigslist didn't really have images, for instance. So I think this is just going to be part of the future.
I just wonder what the proliferation of objects that don't even exist yet, that have been dreamed into, that companies think they can produce, will have a marketplace in a shop and then be online, and then the production will happen, and the whatever the turnaround time they say the shipping can be.
Yeah, well, and I will say I haven't had a chance to write about it yet, but there have been issues of exactly that, of synthetically generated images of products themselves that are nonsense, or that don't actually exist, or don't appear the way that they do in advertising, and there's been work to take those down from wherever they pop up. But part of the, I guess, the smart move here is that if it's the background, then it's not so much about what you're buying as much as like the environment it's in. And it might be a nonsense environment or a physically impossible space, but as long as the product itself is real, that's less important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to wear these to my virtual meetings, so there we
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
I'm gonna have a meeting in space whenever I want to.
Yes,
So
exactly. And of course, if the product isn't as good as you want, then you can leave a review about it, and then the generative AI can hop in and take your review
yeah.
to inform other people in summaries, which is something that we started seeing on some of the largest e-commerce sites, and now has expanded into Yelp with um, these business reviews, where instead of having to scroll through a bunch of reviews, which you hope will be useful, or at least provide the information you're looking for immediately. Yelp's using generative AI to go through all the reviews of a business and put together the key terms that pop up a lot, or the most relevant information for people just wanting to get a capsule summary of a business. So the atmosphere, the food, whatever the top
Mhm.
parts are. So it's it makes sense, especially for places that have a lot of reviews. A summary can really help people who feel overwhelmed about trying to scroll through uh, every review that has been written about a restaurant or
Yeah.
a destination.
So yeah, I assume this will be great for Yelp. Honestly, Amazon's had this in action now for a while, and I certainly I've used it frequently. What I haven't done with the Amazon reviews is I haven't actually gone through myself and like audited like how how really realistic is their little summary of the reviews,
Hmm.
but they seem to be pretty good. And certainly for me, when I'm comparing like 5 brands and I just do a cursory thing, like I can look and see like the most common things. Whereas before, I always had a strategy of like I would look for the threes because I felt they'd be the most balanced of a review. But
Yeah,
now I don't have to do that. Now I don't have to try to find a review that's not a paid reviewer. But
yeah, and it's not hugely different from summarization that was not really AI, where it's just about finding frequently used keywords or
right.
terms. It just takes it a few steps beyond that to be a little more
Mhm.
complex, or a little understanding context a little better, so that even if people don't use exactly the same term to describe a place, the fact that they're saying the same thing in different words, the generative AI is better at understanding that that's what they're doing, and that it can use that as pull that as saying it's being discussed by multiple people. So yeah, it's great. And uh, then taking it a step beyond that is the last in our sort of e-commerce generative AI roundup, going to Etsy, where instead of telling you about a place, or showing you a product in a different setting, it's actually going to proactively recommend things using a new gift mode, which again, it's a similar concept of looking through products, figuring out who is buying them, who is saying that they like them, organizing them into different categories. They're fairly standard in some ways, but what generative AI, what LLMs allow Etsy to do, is to subdivide into, in this case, more than 200 personas that they describe. So people like the video gamer, the music lover, the pet parent, the adventurer. So that all you have to do is tell Etsy's AI the kind of person that you're buying stuff for, what they like, or the kind, or who they what they like to do, and it can curate the gifts to a much more personal level than it could if it were just a broad category of pet tools or video game equipment. Yeah, it's buying gifts can be tough, and if an AI can assist you in making sure that whoever you're buying it for likes the gift, that's not nothing.
Yeah, and just in time for Valentine's Day too, where probably
Yep.
lots of people are cluelessly trying to find their significant other something that they don't already have, but they think they want.
Yeah, and it's a interesting idea. It's again, it's this idea of context and personalizing around not just keywords, but for instance, Walmart's testing out a feature where you talk about an event that you're posting or going to, and it will suggest things for that event. Or Mastercard has a new feature called Muse that they're testing out, which is supposed to inspire you in your shopping rather than directly listing just a few items that are have those keywords or are already categorized by the sellers. So it's again it's a change in how we do shopping online. I mean, there was a time when shopping online was exotic, and now it's by far the standard in at least in the U.S. And now going beyond that to figuring out what to buy, not just where you're buying it, could be all done with software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I suppose a candidate for loser of the week would be all the bespoke boxes that people are getting sent, although those have a whole different structure as to why they are working and why people do them. But
it's true.
Okay, I
But
think we all go ahead.
But yes, before we shift on again, this is Gain, the generative AI news rundown, where cover all the news covered in voicebot.ai and Synthedia. And we have next going into our funding fountain. And, it's rare, even as tech companies seem to be tightening their belts in some ways, there's still venture capital money out there for AI. And in this case, an actual unicorn valuation for an Indian company called Krutrim, which raised $50 million to hit that unicorn billion-dollar valuation. And Krutrim is an interesting company because there's relatively few so far big large language model developers in India, even though India is a huge tech-savvy, tech-using population. It's been very quick to adopt voice assistants and things like that. But now there's interest in LLMs, partly because, of course, the same reason everyone else is interested in them, but also because India has an incredibly diverse collection of languages that are used, and an LLM is only as good as it can understand the language it's interacting with people and understanding. So that's where Krutrim, which means artificial in Sanskrit, comes in, and they're hoping to really build out their own sort of OpenAI with a focus on those Indian the languages spoken in the Indian subcontinent and around there. And it seems like it seems like a no-brainer in some ways. Like there's a lot of there's over 1 billion people in India, and while a lot of them speak English, not all of them do. So an LLM that can do the same things ChatGPT and others are doing in their native languages feels like a real revenue winner.
Oh yeah, I mean we've seen also there's lots of conversational AI companies that we followed for a long time in India, and so it's clear that they're going to be pivoting into the LLM space as well as everybody else. And I think I'm happy for this company simply because they're only 50 million away from that billion-dollar valuation. So congratulations to them for just putting it over that hump, if nothing else.
Yeah, and I should say, I mean, the founders come from very successful AI companies that they were previously involved in. So these are not novices when it comes to building out these kind of companies. But this is another big jump in that regard. And speaking of which, the other big news in our funding fountain is Core AI raised $150 million, and their focus is sort of a step beyond the just building the LLMs and pointing them more toward how they can be used by businesses, by enterprises. So Core has been involved in customer service and virtual assistants for years now. They, even before the generative AI sort of boom, they were using conversational AI of the previous previously most popular version of that, and they were relatively quick to get on board with generative AI, working with OpenAI, working with Anthropic, creating these more customized and more, I guess, flexible assistance for answering customer questions, for helping source information from databases. It's a really again, a bit of a no-brainer in terms of how the technology can be utilized, and Core AI has been quick to get in front of what that potential means for their business. So, and they're not alone in that, of course, but they have a lot of big investors and a lot of big clients, and they've been diversifying into the healthcare focused assistance and working with NVIDIA to really enhance their synthetic voices. There's a lot going on with Core, and this money's going to really help them scale up all their work they're doing.
Yeah, this is great news for Core. Obviously, I'll put that Paul Sweeney comment back up because he is correct. 150 million is a big vote of confidence. And I think, obviously in the people in the conversational AI space that have been making this pivot, they're doing a great job of it so far. And so that should help them continue with the projects and the products that they're working on with their enterprise clients, which they had a pretty good amount of enterprise clients there for them as well. So we are actually going to talk about one more story, and then we will be having we got through these early today because I'm not Brett, and I didn't go didn't expand quite as much as he normally does, but we will do the winners and losers of the week. So if
Yes, so
you're
be sure
here
to
and you're
have
with
your
us, say hello and give us your winner and loser of the week.
yes, but I mean, it would be silly to come away after some of the updates yesterday from one of the big tech companies we haven't really touched on too much. Well, that we've only discussed tangentially, but Google and Google Bard, they had a really interesting 2023 of being a bit late to the game, of having some embarrassing mishaps along the way, but in terms of the technology, they had a lot of it already sort of primed and ready to go, and we're just sort of caught flat-footed. But with the newest update to Bard, it seems like they're really going to accelerate, I guess, how many features they're putting out and how much work they're doing to try to again take away some of the ChatGPT mind share, both ChatGPT and Microsoft Bing and these other AI assistants. So in this case, the Bard has added image creation. They created the Imagine 2, the second version of the Imagine text image tool that came out last year, and now allows for this same sort of image creation that you can get from DALL-E and in Bing and ChatGPT, and the but with all of the Google flair to it. In this case, they're very keen on how photorealistic the images they can make are, and how powerful the guardrails are on it, so that they want to encourage people to use it for all kinds of things without worrying about problematic images popping up. As we've discussed, that's certainly an issue more and more with when people look at how synthetic images are made. And of course, the other big update is the GeminiPro LLM, which came into Bard just in the US at first a few months ago, is now going global. So we're talking about one of the most powerful LLMs now being as accessible as any Google tool. So Google, of course, being used everywhere globally, and whether it's through Chrome or its other or Android or so on. Now those same people won't have to switch over to Microsoft's Edge or go onto the ChatGPT website. They can just keep using Google and get a pretty good LLM for creating text or images, and to complete all the tasks that they've been relying on Microsoft or OpenAI for. So yeah, this could be Bard's year. It's questionable whether they'll really be able to catch up with what OpenAI and ChatGPT have done, but after their recent cutting of Google Assistant features and Google Assistant employees, it's clear that Bard will be sort of central to everything they're doing on the AI front this year.
Yeah, I think it's good that they're rolling this out. What I have noticed, and I've used Bard a lot. I'm agnostic as to in terms of which model I use. I use them all frequently, at least the big four, which includes Anthropic along with the OpenAI. But I think that I've noticed quite a few of the things that I had done before with Bard and fairly successfully, it's telling me it won't do or can't do. So I noticed that I think they put in quite a few extra safeguards with it. So I've had to some things that I was doing with Bard because I thought it did them pretty successfully. I've now switched to using other LLMs, but I've also noticed that across the board too. And just on that integration thing, I think when we really see the next Chrome browser and it's got something in it, that's when I think we'll really know that they've really hit their stride. Because to be honest, like Microsoft now has a version of the Copilot that's on the desktop at a touch of a button, and really I've been using that pretty frequently for all the stuff that I would normally do, even stuff that I would ask Perplexity or some of the other stuff. I've just been using it because it's so simple, it's right there. So again, this war is really heating up, and I think that we're not even close to to the end rounds of it. This is still in the near beginning of it.
Yeah, and as I know the story, and as Brett noted in the most recent Synthedia article, what's really interesting is how Bard, thanks to GeminiPro, has demonstrated in a more sort of provable sense of how powerful and it can be when it comes to these generative AI chatbots, because it's now at number 2 on the chatbots arena leaderboard, which is the UC Berkeley's large model systems organization ranking, and it's beat only by OpenAI's GPT-4 turbo model, but otherwise, GeminiPro right below it and above the other versions of GPT-4. It's interesting that this Bard with GeminiPro outperforms the GeminiPro API, but it just points to how well it's integrated into the sort of chatbot format. And it's not that the average person is paying attention to these rankings, but there are people who do, and word of mouth and can spread the popularity of these kinds of rankings quite a lot, and encourage those who haven't tried any generative AI chatbot to start with what they hear is among the best options, in this case Bard. So who knows what it means long term, but at least at the moment it's a good sign for Google and their plans for Gemini and for Bard.
Yeah, I think overall, people like to say Google is late to the race and all this stuff, but I think that they've been just steadily plugging along for the last 6 months and really adding a lot of extra, things, and bringing Gen AI to where the people are in a way that's a little bit different than what Microsoft's been doing. And there's a lot of people that have been liking to find fault on it, but generally speaking, as a user of Google products pretty frequently, I found most of what they've done helpful, and I think that they're doing pretty well with it.
Yeah, and as Paul Sweeney points out, GenAI Chrome could be a whole new level of experience. And as we were saying earlier, browsers are making generative AI more and more an element of how you surf the web, how you go online, and that sort of integration, as you say, into other Google products may make Bard that much more popular just by default, because so many other Google products are already popular and widely used. So who knows?
I am sure there's a product team on it. We talked about Brave, we talked about DuckDuckGo. I just talked about Copilot being on the desktop. So, and Google definitely has to add it. I'm sure there's probably several product teams competing against each other to try to find the better version of whatever it is, But who knows? That I
And
feel
of course,
like
we haven't even touched on the relatively absentee Apple means that in the mobile side of things, Android, aka Google, has potentially a wide open field to
right
really take over what it means to use generative AI when you're using a mobile device. So who knows?
I guess we will see if the news we had about the Apple consolidating a month or two ago, there's fruit in the summer. I'm sure maybe we'll get a story about that actually has some teeth, but we'll see.
That's going to be a big change for sure. But again, this is gain the generative AI news rundown. Now we're going to do what we do every week, which is talk about who we think the winners and losers of the week in generative AI are. And let's ask you, Andrew, who do you think the loser this week is?
It's so tough. So honestly, I think the loser of this week is I said it when we were talking about the deepfakes, but I think the publicists and the people around celebrities that are now really going to have to go above and beyond with their job, and it's going to be hard once we see the deepfakes really take off into like lots of teenagers just throwing them around the way we throw around memes. I think it's going to be hard to combat what we'll see in the future with celebrities, certainly, and people controlling their brands, at least in the one-to-one ratios that people experience them on social media.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm certainly tempted to agree. I think for me, it's uh, relatedly the loser is all the uh, uh, companies that have either whether it's social media or just generally involve content posting, who now are facing a whole new kind of content moderation nightmare
Mhm.
that they may not have
Right.
imagined, where they're no matter what sort of legal protections they might have, it doesn't change the fact that suddenly it's a lot easier to um, get around the usual rules through the
Right.
power of these synthetics, which may come off as real to any automatic filters, at least.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's gonna be like oversight in whichever way you think of it, whether it's through government or through the companies that are, the the places that hold these things. It's gonna be a wild ride for them all. So, who's your winner?
my winner is going to be the. I'm going
Oh,
to
wait,
say my
hold
winner
on.
will be.
Let's give,
Oh,
Brett
oh yeah, we'll
let's
give
give
Brett the.
Brett
Oh yeah,
a
Brett's.
loser
Yeah,
first.
yep.
So,
Uh, Yep, it's yeah, X. Yeah, the talking about how it's on Twitter, aka X. Yeah, and also one of the stories when Elon Musk took over was obviously a lot of people were like, oh, including quite a lot of the content moderators, and suddenly there's a lot of attention being paid to a content moderation issue that they're as I said, that they had to go to disabling the search function
yeah,
for one of the most popular celebrities in the world, which is not a really sustainable way to handle a social media platform. But
yeah.
unless they have more content moderators, there's not much else they can do.
Certainly the major news organizations loved, loved picking up on that story as they,
Well, it was because, I mean, I'm sure it was shared on other major social media platforms, but was at
right.
least clamped down on, or it seemed to be effectively stopped or limited in a way that did not seem to be the case on X. But
Alright, we'll go to
yeah,
Brett.
in terms of winners, yeah,
We're going with
as
Brett.
Brett says, Bard, yeah, just really a really strong showing as a chatbot, and in terms of the actual new features, and again the global spread of Gemini Pro. I'm gonna say, just because of how many things we've seen pop up, not just this week, but in the last several weeks, online shoppers are going to have a lot more potential opportunities to be better at shopping, of finding out information that they might not have seen in reviews, or of getting suggestions for whether it's the Etsy gifts, or just um, for any online shopping that they're doing, having a more useful assistant rather than just typing in keywords and hoping for the best if they don't necessarily know exactly what they want to buy. So it's a real win for them, that how generative AI is being used for e-commerce. And how about you? Who's your winner?
Well, I was gonna say that too,
You can say it too.
but no, I'm gonna go different because, honestly, I'm gonna go back to this. I think
Oh yeah,
that, having a unicorn in India in this field is good. I think that obviously there's so much there that they're going to benefit from. I think, we don't I think the world is gonna need people, major corporations in all countries that are the major countries for sure, and, probably even smaller countries as well, to be in charge of their own systems for these, language models, so that we're not beholden to one or, several. So I congratulate them. I'm gonna make
yeah.
them the winner of the week, just for getting over that hump. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, it's true. I mean, it so often is. I mean, covering voice AI and AI in general for several years now, it was so often a big deal when uh, companies that were not in either the U.S. or
mhm,
China or Korea, honestly. Outside of those countries, when there is an AI that could communicate in a language spoken by possibly millions, tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of people, there was no AI assistant for that language. And India, of course, being a prime example of lots of languages in one area. So I think you're right that there's going to be potential for just huge amounts of revenue and widespread adoption just on that basis alone.
Yeah, certainly. And we've seen the Mixtral we talked about too, and ALF Alpha, and the European models. And so I think that this is going to be a great world race of having lots of language models that all perform great. And this has been Gain, the generative AI news rundown.
Wait, before we jump that, we have a quick future winner from Alec of Llama 3. Yeah, I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Meta,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Meta has been, while the headlines have been perhaps fewer, they tend to have been quite,
all right.
positive. But
All
anyway,
right.
yes.
Hey, just on that note, since we're talking about the future, over under Llama 3 or GPT-5, which comes out first?
Oh gosh, I think Llama 3. I think Llama 3 is probably in the works already.
You can put in the comments if you have an answer to that one, because it's only speculation.
Yes. Thank you, Brett. And yes, thank you for checking out Gain, the Generative AI News Rundown. We will be back again next Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and can't wait for you to join us then. And yeah, Brett will be back to share his insights. And yeah, thanks again, Andrew, for jumping in this week.
All right, it's been fun. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Bye.